Good morning, Joyce.
Good morning, Anne.
You want to talk about stuff today?
Sure, let's talk about stuff.
Okay, when I say stuff, what comes to mind for you?
Objects, things. How about you?
Yeah, I think about I'm often dealing with as a person who moves a lot, I accumulate stuff and then I have to get rid of stuff. So when I think of stuff, I think of driving to Goodwill. What do you think of as far as adoptees and stuff goes?
Well, I think for most of the adoptees that I've seen over the years, when this subject comes up, it has a lot to do with loss and fear of loss. So, for instance, if you have a favorite sweater, and you are in constant fear that you'll leave it somewhere or someone will take it or something will happen, then you might buy one or two more to have backups. And adoptees constantly talk about that, so I think it's significant in some way. And I really believe it has to do with loss. It has to do with the fear of losing whatever that feels like or brings to you in a certain way or identifies you in a certain way. Um, so I think the accumulation is to prevent the feelings that come with losing something important. And then I think the divesting of things is important too, because, you know, what if you become too attached? So nothing really matters and you can let it go. So I think those are extremes of the same issue, the same, fear of loss.
Hmm. What's your history with stuff?
Um, okay. So in my case, and I've heard this from others, but this is my case. My mom, my adoptive mother, uh, loved to recreate. She was like an interior designer before she knew. I mean, she didn't, that wasn't her job, but that was her. So she loved to get rid of things and to redo things. And I used to joke about coming home from school and not recognizing the house because it would be completely changed. And that I think that ended up affecting my feelings about stuff. I didn't want them to go away. There were things I wanted to have stay. So I was a bit of a collector, you know. I collect certain things.
Like
And
book?
exactly, books, boxes. I love boxes.
Oh, why?
I just love them. They're containers. I wrote a whole poem about it once, and I just love boxes. I think they're really vessels and they're so important. So, but anyway, so I do collect things. And I also divest of them. I mean, I don't hoard things, but I collect things. And and I do it because they're important to me. I gave away tons of books, if you can imagine, by looking behind me, when I moved into this particular house. And I used to have a really hard time giving away books. I would loan people books, but if they weren't going to give them back, I had to buy a replacement. If books were important to me, the story they told was important, and I wanted them to refer to and to refer people to. So that is one thing. Um, yeah, I think things, and I can do without things. I was just writing to a friend who recently had a fire, and we had a fire in my place years ago, and everything was ruined. If it wasn't ruined by fire, water and smoke damage took it. And so it was a real wake-up call that stuff disappears. It goes
Mm.
up and into the ethers, and you can't keep it. So, really recognizing that was an important lesson along the way. Anyway,
How were you able to, because if we're talking about adopted people and, like having a hard time letting things go, what tools do you think that helped you to be able to learn that lesson and to not just go into a collapse of grief?
I don't, I think, yeah, I was going to say I didn't really go into a collapse of grief, but I can remember losing a couple of things that felt
Mhm.
pretty serious to me. Um, I think realizing in the back of your mind that possessions are not all that important. They're really metaphors. And if you can understand what it is they symbolize and see where that's in your life in other spaces, you don't need to grieve the bigger picture.
Mhm.
Grieve the loss of the book, but
Mhm.
you don't have to grieve the loss of the story that went with it.
Mhm.
So I think early on, I learned that that was important.
Yeah, I battled this. I have this impulse to get rid of absolutely everything so that it could just be me and my car and my dog and what I'm wearing, because that to me like feels like such freedom and lightness. And when I move, I get close to that. I give away a lot, but not that close. Like I still have a burden of things. And yet, um, there's that claiming things and keeping things is its own thing. And then I have the feeling, but this doesn't define who I am, and I should be able to give it away. And so, um, if I think about, oh, where is that bowl? And then I remember, oh, right, I gave that bowl to this person, and I have a pang. It's a deep pang, and I try to override it, like don't feel it. And I think part of me would love to have a house that's filled with all my books, that would be an incredible luxury. But because I live with who I am, I don't have that because of the habit of thinking it's okay to give everything away. And it is okay to give everything away, and it's also okay to keep things.
Absolutely. Yeah, the giving away part's important too. I mean, it's, not unusual at all for someone to say they like something I have and I immediately give it to them.
Right.
I think that's that's not an
It's a
end.
wonderful feeling.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you can't also collect things and
Mhm.
then choose to give them away. I think it's the choice that matters. If
Mhm.
you're choosing to do it, it feels different than if someone's taking it. And
Mhm.
this goes to adoption
Mhm.
because if you feel that things were taken from you,
Mhm.
and you didn't have control, which is what happens in most cases, it affects how you see things in that way. So finding out how to have a choice, it
Mhm.
doesn't mean, and there's no judgment. You can be the person who gives everything away and lives
Mhm.
very sparsely, and you
Mhm.
can be the person with a million books in their room. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean one is better than the other. It has to do with your style and your way of
Mhm.
making sense of how to hold on to what you need, how to make sense of what you choose to keep and
Mhm.
to give away, and to whom.
Mhm.
I think the consciousness of choice is what's so important for
Mhm. Yeah,
adoptees.
and to do it with some integrity to your own self, because sometimes I'm not clear on, am I enjoying the giving away, or am I repeating some genetic belief that I have, that I carry, that I am able to give away anything because that's that's what I inherited. But I can only do that through experimenting and then seeing how I feel afterwards.
And I mean, some people don't get to really understand what the underpinnings are. When what you just said alludes to the fact that you think your birth mother just gave you away.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take that as the truth. And in most cases, with birth mothers I've worked with over 50 years, that isn't the case. It's
Mm-hmm.
way more complicated, and there are way more people making choices for you and pushing you in certain directions. It really isn't about choice. So I would say for birth parents, they have their own issues around things being kept or given away, from a different perspective and from a different set of circumstances.
What you said is so important because doing the Martha Beck Wayfinder coach training, I am finding ways to question beliefs that I have. Just that sentence, like my birth mother gave me away, to really slow down and to realize that that's a story that I carry and that I don't know her story. But if I carry that story without questioning it and then make decisions based on it, I'm living a fantasy life. And it's really important to slow down and realize that most of us, unless we, well, even if we're able to talk to her, she can't always tell the truth or doesn't know the truth herself. And so that story can be really, and Martha Beck said, with the stories, don't ask if is it true, ask is it helpful. And the story she gave me away is not helpful to me. And so
It's not helpful to her either. I'm
no.
working with a birth mother right now. Is just really beginning to explore her feelings about this. And she was 17. She had just turned 17 when her baby was born. So she was 16 during her pregnancy. She had no agency. She had no ability to make her own decisions or choices. She couldn't sign anything legally. So it had to be signed by someone else, her mother or whoever was her guardian. So she did not give her child away. It's true, and she's made sense of the fact that she couldn't have parented at that age in her circumstance, but that doesn't mean she gave her baby away. And I think that's very freeing for her to think about that differently. And I think it would be very freeing for her child when she finally connects with that child to learn that that's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, that feels just to sit with that really brings this whole conversation of stuff, like it's sort of full circle. Like we could consider ourselves stuff. And and
Absolutely.
yeah, well, this feels like I want to stop here because I just want to go and sit with what we just talked about. That's okay. I'd love it if anyone who's listening, if this brought up anything for you and you have any questions, just write it in the comment section. But otherwise, Joyce, take good care of yourself today.
You too.
And thank you for making time for this.
Okay, go play with your stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I do.